Keystone Quality Transport, Hazardous Communications Training. This training presentation will review the OSHA Hazardous Communication Standard. This program meets the training requirements for initial training and annual training. Is there something here that I work with that could hurt me? As an employee, you have a right to know about what chemical hazards are present in your work area that could potentially affect your health and safety. The Hazardous Communication Program has 5 core elements. A written program, which must incorporate and tie in all other elements of the Hazardous Communications Program. Safety data sheets, detailed descriptions of each hazardous material that is listed in the material inventory. Labeling requirements used to identify materials in temporary containers. Training, a program developed to train all employees to work safely with hazardous materials. And the material inventory and hazardous assessment, a list of hazardous materials and other physical hazards present in the work area. Periodically, employees may be required to perform hazardous, non-routine tasks. Prior to starting work on such projects, affected employees will be given information by their supervisor on hazards to which they may be exposed during such activities. You will receive site-specific training when you start working at your assigned base. Always remember, if you have any questions about your base location, contact your immediate supervisor. The HazCom program centers around the use of safety data sheets, or SDSs. Safety data sheets are references that identify chemical characteristics and hazards. Safety data sheets are sorted at each base location in an easy-to-identify binder. Safety data sheets are available for all chemicals used in your work area. The appearance of safety data sheets may vary from vendor to vendor, but all safety data sheets must contain specific elements identified in the HazCom standard. Basic chemical details includes information about identification, hazardous ingredients, and composition of those ingredients. The recommended actions section includes first aid measures. Remember, these are general first aid procedures and not EMS medical protocols. Firefighting measures, accidental release cleanup measures, handling and storage requirements, and exposure control and personal protective equipment for routine use of the product. The technical details section includes physical and chemical property information, stability and reactivity data, and toxicological information. The special needs sections include ecological environmental information, disposal considerations, transport information, regulatory information, and other information deemed important by the product manufacturer. Knowing where the safety data sheets binder for your work area is the first step to complying with the Hazardous Communications Standard. The HazCom program also addresses labeling requirements for small volume containers. An important exception to the labeling requirements is the immediate use rule. If an employee who performs the transfer to a smaller container is going to immediately use the product, the temporary container does not need to be labeled. However, best practice would still be to label this temporary container. Labeling must warn of potential danger. Labels do not need to identify or list specific chemical hazards. In this picture, you see the NFPA 704 marking system. This labeling system uses a number range 0 through 4 to identify hazard potential. The higher the number, the greater the risk. The blue section identifies health hazards. The red section identifies fire hazards. The yellow section identifies stability or reactivity hazard, while the white section identifies some specific hazards, such as corrosive or radioactive materials. Labels may use generic warning terms. For example, the key word danger means immediate harm, long-term effects, or death may occur. Some products in your work area may cause health hazards, which could make you sick. Possible health hazards are sensitizers, which cause allergic reaction after repeated exposure, toxic substances, which are poisonous substances, irritants, which cause inflammation of body tissues, and carcinogens, which can cause cancers. Products that cause health hazards can enter the body in different ways. Absorption occurs when the chemical enters the body by passing through tissues. Common areas of occurrence include the eyes and skin. Ingestion occurs when the chemical enters the body through the digestive system. Inhalation occurs when the chemical enters the body through breathing. Injection occurs when the chemical enters the blood directly into the bloodstream. It does not have to be through a needle puncture. Other types of cuts and injuries can cause injection exposures. Some chemicals can be physical hazards. Materials that are flammable or explosive are considered to be physical hazards. Protective measures are the steps or actions you and the organization take to reduce unnecessary exposure and limit the effects of exposure. Protective measures are the steps or actions you and the organization take to reduce unnecessary exposure and limit the effects of exposure. Engineering controls are design elements that protect from or reduce the exposure to chemicals. Work practices are rules for how to use chemicals and protective devices. Product substitution is a method of reducing hazard by switching less dangerous products for more dangerous ones. Personal protective equipment is safety clothing and items designed to limit your direct contact with the chemical product. Personal protective equipment only works if you wear it. As an employee, your main responsibility in complying with the HazCom program is to know the location of the safety data sheets binder for your work area and understand how to get information from the safety data sheets. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation on hazardous communications. If you have any questions about the content of this presentation, please contact a member of the training and certification team or the safety and risk management team. Please complete the quiz Hazardous Communication on the Google Classroom.